We didn't have any grapes in for some reason. Got blueberries.
So, I was originally kind of worried about doing a video on the Romans because I struggled to come up with anything truly pretentious to say about it. I like it for very simple reasons. While not every joke lands, I usually crack up anyway just because of the body language or the physicality the actors are bringing to it, and it dips into some deliciously dark humour at times.
Have you both killed over and over again?
It's dynamic, the camera work is active, it usually cuts away right when it needs to. There's some good visual storytelling like this. Even though it's an anachronism, I'll defend it being there just on the basis that it easily communicates for an audience his entire motivation in just one shot. And I can't believe I'm going to say this, Nero is actually a really good villain.
He didn't fight hard enough.
Derek Francis is able to just turn on a dime and make his performance really sinister.
But I'll see them dead. I'll see them dead.
In fact, I'd go so far to say as it might be the bit of 60s Doctor Who that holds up the best. But how could I justify a claim like that? 1 second. So, what did you think of the Romans?
Well, apart from the human trafficking, the best classic Who you've shown me.
And just to be clear, the classic Whos I've shown you are Terror of the Autons, Evil of the Daleks, and what's that third one? City of Death.
This one wins. I'm sorry. It wins. It was just comedy to me.
That is what it's going for.
Yeah.
So
And
that helps.
the Doctor was a bit of an arse, which was quite funny to me. I loved his personality in that one.
Hartnell's great. He's just having almost too much fun.
No, I was expecting them to like find each other in the room.
It kind of plays out like Partners in Crime, you know, the first episode of
Oh,
Series 4 with
yeah.
the Doctor.
Sponsorship time. Don't worry, it's free. It's a podcast. An awful lot of running, hosted by Jack and Robin. They talk about everything you could want to hear as any stripe of Doctor Who fan. They talk about all kinds of stories, expanded media and beyond. They talk about some other things, like latest pop culture news. They have amazing guests on. And they host Battles in Fandom, which I've been on, and it is both hilarious and terrifying, not unlike myself. Nero, what are you going to do to them if they don't listen to it?
Let's take it into the arena on an island with water all round, and in the water there will be alligators, and the water level will be raised, and the alligators will get you!
Please bear in mind that Nero is a fictional character, and you cannot sue him nor me.
And now, for a list of all of the wonderful, fun Hartnell moments from the Romans. The interactions with Ian and Barbara, where he gets his name wrong for the millionth time, but then that turns into a joke. Forgetting the name of the guy he's going to pretend to be. This whole fight scene and every single word that comes out of his mouth. The fact that he wants to sleep in the same place someone just tried to kill him. Making terrible puns right as he's about to be executed. Every single hilarious facial expression. It really does feel like by this point in Doctor Who's run that the character we all know and love today really had arrived. Of course the Doctor enjoys getting into crap BBC fights and name dropping shamelessly. Davis, in 2 different videos, has pointed out that the Romans is kind of the first time we see the Doctor take on a more trickster archetype role. Spooner laid the groundwork for this in Reign of Terror, like I mentioned in that video. He takes this and doing comedy and historicals and uses them both as the main attraction here, and it pays off really well. This and The Rescue before it are the first time we see the Doctor truly in his element. It feels like he's mastered time travel by this point. It makes the Doctor into a hedonist, a lover of life, and that's always going to be one of the most important things about the character for me. I need my Doctor to laugh. Even for a 4-parter, you're bound to get a little bit of fat. All of Ian's scenes in part 2 really just constitute a story loop. We didn't need to see him and Delos escape just to get recaptured in Rome again. We could have just taken them straight to the Colosseum. The scenes of Nero chasing Barbara. This was brought up in a comment section in a recent video of mine. I don't love them myself, but I understand why it was there. It's commonplace in the genre of comedy it's riffing on. Spooner included it when he found out that Derek Francis, a friend of Hill's husband, was cast in the role. Best friends always try to seduce the wife. And Francis plays it so childishly that helps to a certain extent. And by far the funniest part of this whole thing is Barbara just chugging that goblet of wine. This has not been made into a GIF yet, and that is a crime. What nobody is talking about is that neither Barbara nor the women that came before her ever reported being harassed to the Met. This can only mean one thing: Nero has never harassed anyone ever at all. As a result, anyone who ever believed any of these women must now delete their Twitter account and will be fed to the lions. So, why did they decide out of nowhere, let's make a carry-on film? Doing a story set in ancient Rome is one of those premises you list off in your head when you're asked to do a time travel show. Apparently it was Lambert's idea to make it a comedy, and Spooner already seemed keen to explore that area given the Reign of Terror. He's noted that it's one of the more enjoyable ways for a serial to make its run times. Jacob Edwards identifies 2 influences in his Black Archives book on the Romans. A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum and Carry On Clear, which came out just a year before. As the book points out, it's less trying to depict an account of what happened than the previous historicals, and it's more trying to recreate a genre. It's a comedy historical based off a comedy historical. And so you kinda see this as a point that marks Doctor Who's shift towards a series about genres. It's an existing story that we shove Doctor Who into. We have seen this before, again, Reign of Terror using Scarlet Pimpernel, and the last couple of episodes of The Keys of Marinus dropped the TARDIS team into a courtroom drama. But this does still feel like a turning point. Now, this could be looked at as a bad thing. Edwards remarks that it's probably the point at which history becomes another backdrop against which to tell a story. Sandifer also put forward that this is probably why the pure historicals died out, at least with the Spooner model, because if you're just trying to have fun with a genre, why not throw aliens into it? That lets you have fun with a lot more tropes. Could another comedy pure historical come about again? So am I really suggesting that we use Carry On Cleo to teach kids history? I'm being told no. There is a way for Doctor Who to have the objective of depicting historical events for education purposes and still be funny. The best comparison for this...
Shaped like Christians.
They are Christians. Sorry, what? Can we get another candle, please?
For any non-UK viewers, or those who are deprived of a good childhood, it was a children's comedy sketch show that would cover multiple eras of history in one episode. Think of it as the spiritual predecessor of Broke Canon. It was the kind of thing that would always stick in your head as a kid, because they would either find the weirdest, funniest, or grisliest facts possible, and the fact that they had any amount of truth to them was enough of a spectacle. And that's probably the biggest reason to do a pure historical now. Real life is stranger than fiction sometimes. Or they would satirize other parts of history in ways that even a kid could get the joke. Just take this sketch about World War I, where an army officer has to explain to his men why they're going to war. When you read about the factors that led up to World War I in a textbook, it seems a lot more serious. But when you lay out the convoluted web of alliances that the world was in, and how one country just kept pulling another country into it, you realise how fucking stupid it was. What leapt out to me when I revisited it for this video was that there was a massive discrepancy between how it talked to the audience and what it was talking to them about. The show was delightfully upfront with how grisly history could get. Almost as much as Classic Who. Though obviously for different reasons. With Classic Who, it was more a case of...
See, back then it wasn't generally understood that kids needed to have their delicate sensibilities protected, as odds were pretty good they were all going to die in a European trench war before they turned 18 anyway.
Whereas with Horrible Histories, it just looked and sounded too silly. Basically, if you want to explain how torture works to your children, do it in a musical number. I know we collectively kind of think of the pure historicals as highbrow, pure drama, and there definitely is a place for that. Trying what I recommend with something like the partition of India, the ramifications of which people are still feeling today. Bad idea. Don't do it with something like that. But for topics that have a greater distance to them, like ancient Rome, this is a surefire way to get kids interested in a baseline understanding of history. I bet my secret copy of Dalek's master plan that kids learnt more from the Romans than they did from Marco Polo, the Massacre, or the Aztecs combined. I think the closest example of something like this is The Witchfinders, but again, that's only really Alan Cummings' performance. The rest of the characters aren't in on the joke like he is. But what about that other issue I've mentioned with historicals? The fact that the Doctor never interfering with history makes no sense, not ever. At first, I thought the Romans was kind of going for the Darren Shan rules. If Nero doesn't think of it himself, someone else will give him the idea, or if the Doctor hadn't given him the idea, someone else would have done. Or I thought it might be going for the Waters of Mars thing. By not trying to interfere, you make it happen. But as Edward points out, that double standard is actually addressed here, especially in the novel where the Doctor interferes even more. It's basically the punchline. So I suppose that's one way of tackling this kind of issue. The ending really stuck with me. The Doctor realising for the first time that he's properly meddled in history, and he actually quite likes the feeling of it. It's a journey that takes him from here all the way to the War Games. The Romans is almost a microcosm for the Hartnell era. It's the foundation for so many things that'll come later, and yet when you go back and revisit it, there's still so much it has left to offer. And whether we see it again by doing another pure historical comedy, or just slipping it into a DVD player, or, God forbid, selling your soul to BritBox, it's history worth repeating.
Brilliant! Brilliant!